Joining us right now on the line, he's a guy that does this for a living as far as pollsters go. He's with NBC, also the Wall Street Journal, and we hear a lot of different opinions. Mostly, most of the polls I see, I'd say 99% of them are saying that Trump is leading Joe Biden, but why not have a professional on that does this for a living? His name is Jeff Horwitt, again with NBC and the Wall Street Journal. Jeff, I appreciate you taking some time to join us. How are you?
I'm great. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff.
So important to note that you did this poll with a Republican pollster as well. This was a bipartisan poll. Do I have that right?
You do.
Okay, so that's really important to note. And I would also say the Wall Street Journal is a conservative platform. So let's start by talking about just Trump versus Biden, just crunching the numbers. Is it true that your poll showed 51% to 40% over Biden, over Trump? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that is true. One thing I just want to be correct here is that most polling does show right now Joe Biden with a lead over Donald Trump, and in the national polls, and that's consistent with what we found in our polling as well, a 51 to 40 margin over Donald Trump. And look, as an incumbent, you really want to be at or close at 50%, and so at 40% now, that's a really tough place for Donald Trump to be, starting off in July of an election year.
So, Jeff, I don't speak for some of these people, but I know my co-host, and he'll probably talk to you about this. He quotes the Rasmussen poll, and I know you don't speak for them, but with that being said, am I wrong in just assuming that the Rasmussen poll might be a little askew, and when 99% of other polls throughout the country, like yours, that are bipartisan, that are saying that Joe Biden is up 10, 11 points?
Yeah, look, I think to be a good consumer of any polling, you want to be educated, and you want to look at the poll, how it's conducted, and you also want to take it not just in a vacuum by itself, but you want to look at a series of polls here, and I think that's really important. So the Rasmussen poll is one poll, but if you look at whether it's the NBC Wall Street Journal poll or many other polls out there showing a pretty consistent result here, which is right now a large advantage for Joe Biden.
Well, the reason I brought up the Rasmussen poll is because actually in late June it had Trump at 42%. And he's increased by 9% over the last month and a half. So, yeah, I understand that it has a bit of it's skewed slightly to, conservative, but it's not like it was showing him anywhere near these numbers as of late June. So why do you think that increase is taking place?
Well, again, I would point to the vast majority of other polls out there that are showing a different picture. And, one of the things that you have to look at is when you see a result like that, you don't want to look at it in a vacuum.
All right, you know what we're going to do? I think we're going to get another line here. I don't want to interject, but I think we're going to have to. I think we got a bad phone line, so we are going to get Jeff to call back. And it's we were going into his poll. And by the way, we're going to get into a lot of other polls that they did as far as Trump's handling of the coronavirus and also race relations. And again, it is very important to note that the Wall Street Journal is not a left-wing publication. In fact, many people would say it is the opposite. He partnered up with a Republican pollster. So this is a bipartisan poll. It's not like a bunch of lefties did this poll. They're saying that Biden is at 51%. They're saying Donald Trump is at 40%. And we're also going to get into some of the other polls that Jeff Horwitt did. By the way, this is not his first rodeo. Jeff Horwitt has been doing this for years. He is a pollster with NBC, as I mentioned, also with the Wall Street Journal. And when you look at polls throughout the country, they're pretty much all saying the same thing, that Joe Biden is up anywhere between 8 to 11 points. So before the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump elections in 2016, sure, the polls did show that Hillary Clinton had a strong lead, but as we got closer and closer to November, those polls shrunk, and Hillary Clinton was clinging to a 1 to 2 point lead on election night. I don't see that happening here, but again, if that does happen, we'll have to wait and see. But I believe we are getting Jeff Horwitt, the pollster with NBC and Wall Street Journal, back on the line with us. We had a kind of a faulty line earlier, but we got Jeff back on. Okay, so Jeff, now that we have you back on, JD, my co-host, just was talking a little bit about the Rasmussen poll, and you were getting into it. Can you go back to square one talking about Rasmussen? What were your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, my point is any one poll, I think you want to look at this in totality, and if you see a change in a number like that, you want to say, all right, we'll look at the other polling out there. Is it consistent with that? And if it isn't, then you also want to say, okay, well then what possibly could be going on in the country to explain why there would be an improvement. And, we now have over 155,000 Americans who have sadly passed away from coronavirus. Economy is still in very tough shape. So it's sort of hard to understand how you would see a shift in numbers based on what's going on the ground.
So Cato did a poll a couple weeks ago, and it stated that 62% of Americans are actually afraid to be honest about their political affiliation. When you reach out to people as part of your polls, how do you do that? How do you survey them?
We take people, we believe what people tell us, and that was true in 2016. It happened to bear out very close to the overall result in 2016, and we ask not just one question like who are you going to vote for, but a series of questions which allows us to understand where voters are coming at, and we really the results do reflect that again as it is in 2016.
All right, so Jeff, let's move on to some of the other questions you asked people in this poll. That is Trump's handling of the coronavirus. What did you find there?
Yeah, well, this is one of these things where there are a couple of issues that are at play right now. The coronavirus is one of them. And, again, his job rating is quite low right now overall. And then his job rating on coronavirus is lower than that. And so, he's at 37% on coronavirus. And again, this is the issue of the day. This is what people are living through every day. And so to be at that number, which is even lower than his overall job rating, is not a good place to be. And I think voters are evaluating him on this. His economic job rating is at 54%. So voters are, evaluating him on different measures, giving him credit on the economy, but his overall job rating is much closer to his rating on the coronavirus right now, which again is below 40%.
Jeff, you made a really good point earlier, and I was thinking about that, and that is when you look at some of these polls, and I think most of them are pretty much on target, but we're talking about the Rasmussen poll, right? And again, I know you don't speak for them. When you see a poll that all of a sudden might change from a 42% approval rating for Trump to go to maybe 50 or 51%, you have to say to yourself, why? And what has he done in the last month that would change people's minds? I think you bring up a very valid point there. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think every pollster will tell you that every once in a while you get a number that is outside of an outlier, is a number that other polls aren't getting, and you want to trust your numbers, and you do the work to make sure that your poll is as good as it can be.
Right.
And so that can happen. But again, if you look, I think looking at the averages of the other polls that are out there, that's just a result that's not consistent with many other polls.
Sure. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Jeff Horwitt, a pollster from NBC. Wall Street Journal did a bipartisan poll. His partner, Republican pollster, he's a Democrat. And also, I'll mention this again because I think it's important. The Wall Street Journal is known as a conservative publication. I think that's fair to say. All right, Jeff, let's move on now to race relations. As you know, the Black Lives Matter movement, we're talking about race on this show and across the country every day. How is Donald Trump doing in this poll when it comes to race relations in this country?
Sure. So this is another place. This is one of the other issues of the day that is front and center, and this is a place where voters really are having a difficult time in assessing the president in a positive way. So he is at just 33% who approve of the job he's doing on race relations. And that is, again, lower than coronavirus, lower than his overall job rating. And in this context, it's another reason why you look at all the national polls. You can sort of understand why his numbers are fairly low right now, because on these major issues, he is just not reflecting the values and what the American people want to hear from their leaders. Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about masks. So a lot of people say, well, if masks work, then why are the numbers going up? Well, last month, you polled some people. Only 63% said they would always wear masks. And now you're saying at least 74% are saying that they will wear masks in public. What do you attribute that to?
So I think there is a greater awareness. You're seeing a lot of governors take a really strong positive stance who may not necessarily have done so in the past about talking about the importance of wearing masks. You're seeing public health leaders like Dr. Fauci also also doing this. And you've seen pictures of President Trump also wearing masks in public, which he hasn't done in the past. I think that's all good and important. The concerning thing is we're still seeing that mask wearing has become sort of a political issue, and this is really a public health issue. So we ask for Democrats, 92% of Democrats say that they always wear masks. That's just 55 when they're outside the home. That's just 55% for Republicans.
That's troubling. Isn't that troubling, Jeff, that in this entire poll you're saying only 55% of Republicans, almost half, and 1 in 4 people are not wearing a mask in public? And then we wonder why we're having a spike in cases.
It is, and we know from public health officials that there really needs to be 80-90% of Americans need to be wearing masks for the country to be able to really effectively fight this virus. And so you're exactly right. It's very concerning that this is not public health is not a political issue, but it's become one. I would just add that even there are 2 groups of Republicans we look at in our polling. Those Republicans who identify more with Donald Trump and those who identify more with the Republican Party. And a majority of those who identify more with the Republican Party always wear masks, but that's not the case for Republicans who support Trump more than the party.
Gosh, isn't that interesting? Wow, and I guess it's not surprising. Donald Trump's words matter, and they matter a lot, and his actions matter. All right, let's go to this part of the poll that I wanted to get to with you. This will be my last question for you, and this is where the country is headed. What direction? Are people in this country happy with where the country is headed? What did you find there?
Well, this is not. This is something we've seen over time, and a question we've really since 2006. Every election, one way or another, has been a change election. Americans have not been happy with the direction of the country, and I think this was something that Donald Trump really played off of very well and effectively in 2016 to his benefit. But we have a question we've asked since 2015, and that's whether you agree with the statement, I feel angry because our political system seems to be only working for the insiders with money and power, like those on Wall Street or in Washington, rather than working to help everyday people get ahead. And we have 50% who say this describes them very well, 71% overall say it describes them well. And so the point here is that people are continuing to look for change. In every election since 2006, they have sought change one way or another, and they still haven't got what they're looking for.
Now, my last question for you here: are you familiar with the Helmut Norpoth poll? Because, the poll. He actually has predicted, from what I understand, 24 of the last 26 correct elections. Are you familiar with that? And do you think that that's bogus? And because that poll actually said that there's a 90% chance that there's a 90% chance that Donald Trump wins the 2020 election.
I can only speak to our polling, the polling that I do, the polling that I know. And the one thing I would caution, I think the one thing that we learned in 2016 is models and predictors are very dangerous things. And just as a sporting event, when someone says that a team has a 90% chance of winning, they do until the game is over. And again, those models are great. The past is the past, but all I can tell you is the data we're seeing now and what it's pointing to. And just in 2016, I would never have said that Donald Trump had a 10% chance of winning. I don't believe that he has a 90% chance of winning in 2020.
Sure. I think there's some middle ground in both of those. Hey, Jeff, I think you guys do a great job over there at the Wall Street Journal. I appreciate you taking some time to come on. Keep up the good work, my friend. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Take care, guys.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeff.
It's Jeff Horwitt, a very well-respected guy, a pollster with NBC and the Wall Street Journal, and everything he said I completely agree with. I don't think anybody said that there was a 10% chance that Donald Trump was going to win in 2016. Did I think Hillary Clinton was going to win? Yes. But I did not think Trump had a 10% chance. I don't think anybody thought that, including the odds makers who had Donald Trump days before the election at around 1.5 to 2 to 1. And this race is going to be tight as well. Make no mistake about it. This is going to be tight, at least right now. That's my feeling.